It's been over 3 years that we've been talking about ESG scores on this channel, and it's wholesome to see that finally the conversation has hit mainstream, especially before the US presidential election in the United States. Now, if you want to explain what ESG scores are to a person that doesn't know, is to talk about America's pension funds. So an American works hard their entire life, and then they give some of that money to a corporation so that when they retire, they have something in exchange. And these corporations are called hedge funds. There's not many of them. The biggest ones are BlackRock and Vanguard Corporation. And they are hedge funds which manage the wealth of average Americans. Now, they're supposed to invest the money, and when you invest something, you need a risk assessment because you don't want to invest the money in a failing business. And there's many ways that you can do risk assessment. It's something completely subjective. You're basically trying to predict the future and find out if a business is going to be successful or if it's going to go bankrupt. But, of course, many economists have figured out various mathematical ways to calculate the chances of success for a business. But unfortunately, instead of applying those methods, they're applying the ESG score. So the ESG score is supposed to figure out if a business is going to be successful or not. But what it does is it actually measures the wokeness of a business. So the E stands for environmental, like how much carbon dioxide does the business produce into the atmosphere. S stands for social. How much does the business care about the social issues surrounding it? So, for example, how much do they advocate for LGBT issues, or how much do they care about Black Lives Matter? And the G stands for governance. How is the business being governed? How many people of color they have in their leadership? How many gays do they have on their board? And so on and so forth. So like all of these things put together, they create the ESG. And notice that this doesn't tell you if a business is going to be successful or not. I guess in an alternate reality, you'd have the Catholic Church investing into businesses, and instead of like trying to figure out if the business is successful or not, they would try to figure out how pious the business is. So, for example, they would have a score that would measure like how many members of the clergy you have on your board. How many times do their executives go to Sunday church? How many prayers do their workers do per day? And the justification would be that you need a pious company in order for God to bless it. So the church would not give money to a company that is in the disfavor of the Lord, right? Like this is pretty much what the ESG score is like, but instead for Christianity, it is for the woke ideology. And you do have a representative from BlackRock in a talking show saying that you have to force behaviors onto people, because they are aware that what they're doing is incredibly unpopular, but they want the corporations to force behaviors onto people so that people feel alienated. Like if you have a certain opinion, and you notice that everyone on social media gets banned for saying this opinion, you have like a group of people that are praising social media for banning, you have corporations that are actively against your opinion in their advertisements, so on and so forth, then you feel like a minority. So, for example, when you had the Black Lives Matter organization, right, the organization, not the sentiment, asking for donations, if you criticized it in any way, shape, or form, you could have been banned from social media. You notice that all companies that were around you, like all major corporations and actors and activists, would have stated that they stand firmly with this organization and they do not tolerate anyone that doesn't, right? It makes you feel like you're alone. It makes you feel alienated. And this is the whole purpose of it, is to push an ideology into society, which is left-leaning in nature, and make people who disagree with the ideology feel like not only they're an outlier, but to feel like they're part of the problem. So the funny thing about the ESG is that obviously it does not care about the environment, believe it or not. I mean, there have been people promoting the ESG saying that it actually doesn't help the environment because most of the corporations, they only do the bare minimum in order to get their scores high because companies want to make money. They're not interested in pushing an agenda. You notice that with the social issues, it actually pisses people off a lot more than it gets people to approve. Like, for example, in many places, the approval for LGBT issues have dropped since the ESG scores have been enacted. But more so, and this is interesting, you have companies that make tobacco, right? Which have a higher ESG score than a company which makes electric cars. Like if the score was legitimately for promoting environmental issues, this would never happen. And it's just one example. Like there have been many others where companies that within their nature, within the product that they're making is supposed to fight to help fight climate change, have gotten a lower ESG score than other companies that don't do these things, but they actually pollute, or if not, they just promote the social issues, right? Like they do a lot of marketing. They're very woke. They have like the correct members of the board. They talk the correct talking points. They push the correct commercials. They invite the correct activists, but they cause cancer. Like for example, seeing Philip and Morris International having an 85 ESG score is beyond ridiculous, right? Because it's not about this, it's pretty much about control and dominating these corporations ideologically. Now, what some people have suggested, and this is a conspiracy theory, but we do live in a time where conspiracy theories become fact within 1 year or so, is that the whole ESG thing is to purposefully try to bankrupt and cause an economic crisis, because we notice that these companies start alienating their customers in order to get more of this investment money. And eventually, they will have to return the money that they get. But if they alienated their customers, where are they getting their money from? So the moment the investors will refuse to give them another investment, then they will fall like domino pieces, and it's going to cause economic issues. However, this is where the central bank digital currency can kick in, which is something that normally, under regular circumstances, most people wouldn't accept. But if you cause an economic crisis and you say, well, you want some universal basic income, or do you want some help from the government? Well, you got to get on the central bank digital system. Then more people may be likely to join it. And this is probably, why people believe that the ESG is a thing. Because it's very difficult to explain any other way. It's almost impossible to explain it any other way when it's supposed to fight against pollution, yet you get to see companies that do pollute having a higher ESG scores than others. When it's supposed to help the LGBT community, but you notice that it actually sets back that community. Like, more progress has been done before the ESG scores, and in fact, once the ESG scores happened, progress is being dialed back, right? It's very difficult to explain it from a practical standpoint, but it's being pushed nevertheless. Of course, it could also be argued that it's due to incompetence. Like, usually when a system is very large and very encompassing, it's very difficult for the people at the top to control what the people at the bottom are doing. Whatever the case may be, I do believe that the next American election is going to focus around this issue. Like, you're going to definitely have a conversation now out in the open where many people are going to voice their opinion on the ESG score, something that its proponents doesn't like. The correct moral and modern way is to not have the debate to begin with. People should be told what they need to do. They shouldn't be consulted, and under any circumstance, these important issues shouldn't be put up to a vote. But anyway, right, we'll see. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will find you in the comment section. Take care.